Alright, today we're going to go fly fishing for smallmouth bass on a spinning rod and reel setup. Booyah! On the fly, baby! Alright, so when I'm fishing like a woolly bugger or another streamer wet fly, the setup I use, the basically just tie the fly on, got like 4-pound fluorocarbon leader, and then I add a couple split shots. That's going to give you the weight you need to cast it, especially if you're using like a lightweight fly with no weight to it. And all you really need to do is cast it out. Split shots will give you the ability to cast it far. It's going to drift down the water column, and then when you pop it up, the fly is going to have about 8 to 6 inches of kind of free line, and that's going to let it drift down the water column super naturally and kind of flutter. And that current is going to what gives it the action, so you really don't have to do too much. Just pop it up, let the current give it the action, the feathers, and that's when you get your strikes. So the technique I use when I'm fishing, like a woolly bugger or any sort of fly where I'm going to be jigging it with the spinning rod, is obviously you want to cast it out into the current, try to target those slack water seams, and really you don't have to do much, just let it drift down. That fly is going to drift very slowly down the water column just because it's so light. And that's really what you want, because that's when the fish are going to take it, when it's fluttering down. And really you're just going to be popping it right off the bottom. You don't have to do a heavy pop, because again it's super light. You just want to kind of get it a couple inches off the bottom to let it flutter down, and then just let it sit, pop, and it's on that flutter down we're going to get the pits. Oh, see, I had one right there. That's why I put the split shot pretty far up on the fly, because you want to have that weight, but you don't want the split shot weighing it down, because you still want that super good action of it fluttering down the water column slowly. So the further you put it up, the more stretch it's going to have to let it flutter down. So experiment with the water depth you're fishing in, and it's going to give you the best presentation. All right, guys, Smalley on the fly. Oh, he's a nice little Smalley too. Oh, these guys are so fun to catch on the fly. Hooked up this Smalley. We're using a little woolly bugger. Fly on a spinning rod, baby, for these Smalleys. It's so fun. These are nice size ones. Above the fly, about 8 inches up top to give me some casting distance. And what that allows you to do is obviously cast it, but then if you have it far enough up, it still allows your fly to flutter super slow down the water column, and that's what's going to bring out these bites. And look at him. On the fly, baby! Looks like we got another bass on the fly, baby! He ate the woolly bugger all right. Oh, this is such a great setup for these creek bass. Look at that. He hit a big one. Woo! He's got some nice face markings. Nice Smalley on the fly, on the spinning setup, baby. Man, you really can't beat these flies in creeks. That's mainly what they're all eating. So if you can mimic what they're eating, you have a good day of fishing. This guy hit it right on that drop, just like we were talking about. We're just jigging it right at the bottom, letting it kind of float down super naturally, and he smoked it. I caught that last bass right behind this rock up here. You can see the current going into this pool, and then you can definitely see deeper water, the shallower water on each side, so it's a nice hole. And they're just sitting in that hole looking upstream, waiting for that current to bring in fish. So all I did was cast it right up into that current, and then let it sink, and I kind of jig it right with the current. The current's going to give it the action you want, and he hit it like right away. So you can read rivers, and we have a video about that. You're going to increase your chances drastically. You're going to be knowing where those fish are holding, and that's just going to definitely make you much more effective when fishing. Got him. Right on that current. Oh, another smallmouth. Like I was saying, he's right in the current, right on that drop off. He hit it good. Another smallie on the fly. Woo, double dutch. Woo. Nice smallie on the fly. Rachel got a bluegill. Again, just like we were talking about, he hit right in that current. See that little slack water pool on the edge? Target the seams with this fly and just jig it right up in that water column. And it's gonna look so natural coming down the river. Working the woolly bugger right in this current. Just popping up and down. And he hit it good. These things are so fun to fight in the current. Woohoo! Oh, quick release. There we go, baby. Just shows you how effective it is. Little fly on the spinning reel can definitely be done. It just adds the amount of different lures you can use. Because if you can mimic these flies and aquatic insects, like we've been saying, that's their main diet source, and you're gonna hook up good on them. All right, so I'm gonna show you the second set we're using to fish a fly on the spinning rig. So this is for float fishing a fly. So you got a little strike indicator. I like using the trout magnet bobbers, but you can also get regular strike indicators. And then I'm using a little woolly bugger fly here, subsurface fly. So when we're fishing it, the strike indicator is just gonna let it kind of flow down the water, just like a fish, or just like a little insect would. And so the one thing you have to do is add a couple weights, because you're not gonna be able to cast a fly on a spinning rig just because it's too light. So I add a couple weights, and I add it pretty far up from the fly, and that allows the fly about 8 inches of line just to act super naturally, and that's going to let it kind of float down unimpeded. It's going to make it look as natural as possible. Alright, when you're fishing this setup with a strike indicator and a fly, you're going to want to position your strike indicator or bobber high enough up so that your fly is basically just off the bottom. So really the way you can tell when it's about a good depth is you like start snagging. If you're not snagging the bottom at all, it's likely that you're fishing it too shallow, because the fish are mostly going to be holding at the bottom 20% of the water column. So it's really important to have this fly get down to that area. So make sure you adjust your bobber height according to the depth you're fishing. And then what I like to do to make sure the fly gets down there relatively quickly is add a couple really small split shots, a little bit above the fly. That'll just help your fly get down there pretty quickly into the water column where most of the fish will be feeding. One tip when using this little float fishing fly rig on a spinning rod is you're going to want to let it flow down the river as naturally as possible. And that means not letting your line get taut, which is going to pull the bait up and make it look super unnatural. So when you do let it float down the current, all you're going to do is set your drag pretty low. That way you can easily let the line go out. And then as it's drifting, you see your line start to get taut, just give a little bit more line. And basically you just want to give enough line so it looks natural as it's flowing down the river. And then when you get a bite, one thing you have to do is, since you have no drag, it's going to be really hard to set. So all you have to do is kind of hold your line here, add tension, and then you can just rip it, and that'll get you the hook set. And then once you're actually hooked up on a fish, you can tighten your drag and fight it. But to give it that super natural presentation as it's flowing down the river, just let your drag go and just give it line as needed. Alright, so we're going with the other floating technique with the same woolly bugger. Just gonna let it drift through this little pool here. Woo, got him. I was just letting it drift through that pool. Obviously with the strike indicator, using a little woolly bugger fly. This guy looks like it might be a fall fish. Oh yeah, a nice size one too. There we go, on the fly with the spinning gear, baby. So this is another little setup you can use with your spinning gear. You want to float fish your fly, great for bass in this instance, but also I use it a lot for trout. Actually, I'll link to the video up there for the trout. You can see us using fly fishing. You can see us using flies on spinning rods to catch trout, but it works just as good during the summertime for some awesome smallmouth action in these creeks. The fish's main diet in these creeks is going to be aquatic insects. So if you're able to mimic that using a fly, something like a woolly bugger or even a beaded head fly, you're gonna have a good day on the creek. So the fish's main source of diet is gonna be these aquatic insects. So if you're able to use a fly, you're just gonna have a much better chance of catching a whole lot of fish because this is what they're used to eating. We caught smallmouth earlier with the old jigging method. We switched over to the float fishing method with the fly with the old strike indicator, and we're able to hook into a nice fall fish. Woo! Another species on the day. Alright, so there you go. That's how you fish with flies using a spinning rod and reel. These rigs are effective, as you can see. Go check them out. Use them in a creek. You can hook up trout, bass, panfish, anything. So get yourself some flies and go fishing.